A violent winter storm ripped across the city that night, sending sheets of freezing rain crashing against abandoned buildings and empty streets, and somewhere in the darkest corner of that storm walked a thin, shivering girl with tangled hair and trembling arms wrapped around a crying baby who wasn't even hers. Her breath came out in shaky clouds, her clothes soaked and clinging to her skin, her steps unsteady as she fought against the fierce wind that felt determined to push her down. That moment, the sight of a homeless teenage girl walking alone through the cold with a child pressed desperately to her chest, was the kind of image that could break even the hardest heart. She looked fragile, exhausted, and lost, yet she didn't stop. Not for a second. It was as if something inside her refused to surrender, even when the world had given her nothing but reasons to quit. And what happened next, what a single dad millionaire decided to do after seeing her, became a story that people would whisper about for years, because it reminded them that even in the coldest nights, the warmest miracles can still appear. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that restore your faith in humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispersof Kindness. Your support helps more people see stories that matter. Her name was Arya, barely 19, a girl who once had dreams of becoming a nurse, dreams filled with warmth and light, until life took all of it away piece by piece. She had grown up in a home where survival meant staying quiet and moving carefully, and by the time she managed to escape the abuse at 18, she was already carrying scars that went far deeper than anyone could see. The streets became the only place she could go, and the thin blanket she carried was the closest thing she had to security. Some days she begged, some days she starved, some days she prayed for morning, and some days she prayed for the pain to end. But despite everything, Arya had something inside her that refused to die: compassion. A softness she guarded fiercely, even when the world around her was hard. It was on that very evening, while sheltering beneath a broken sign behind an old convenience store, that Arya first heard the desperate wail of a baby. At first she thought she was imagining it, a sound carried by the wind, but as she moved closer, her heart froze. There, tucked between two dumpsters, wrapped in a torn sweatshirt, was an infant no more than 6 months old, his face red from crying, his tiny hands trembling from cold. Arya's heart fractured into 1,000 pieces. She looked around for his mother, but no one was there, only darkness, icy air, and silence. Her instincts took over. She lifted the baby carefully, pressing him to her chest, trying to warm him with her own body heat. She didn't know where to take him, she didn't know who to trust, she didn't even know if she would survive the night herself, but she knew she couldn't leave him. Not like that, not alone. The storm grew worse with every step, the ground turning slippery, the wind howling like a beast, cutting through the city with merciless force. Arya's fingers were numb, her clothes plastered to her skin, her knees threatening to buckle again and again. She whispered soft words into the baby's ear, promising him she wouldn't let anything happen to him, even though she wasn't entirely sure she could keep that promise. Each breath burned, each movement felt heavier than the last, but she kept going, guided only by the faint memory of a warm place she once passed, a shelter she was turned away from months ago because they were full, but maybe, just maybe, they would help the baby if not her. On the other side of the storm, in a warm office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, sat Gabriel Hale, a 35-year-old single dad, a self-made millionaire known for his sharp mind, disciplined life, and a heart that only softened for one person: his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. He had built everything from scratch, rising from poverty to success through relentless determination after losing his wife years earlier. The world saw him as strong, unbreakable, intimidating even, but inside, Gabriel carried a quiet ache that never fully healed: the memory of the night he lost the woman he loved in childbirth, the emptiness that followed, and the fear of ever failing his little girl. That night, Gabriel had been working late, reviewing charity proposals. He looked tired, weighed down by responsibilities, but still trying to do good in the world, even if only in small ways. When he finally stepped out of the building and into the underground parking area, he never expected the scene that would appear before him like something out of a different world. At the far end of the lot, illuminated by the flickering lights and the wind-driven rain coming through the open entrance, a girl staggered in slowly, dripping water, clutching something to her chest. Gabriel froze. She looked like she might collapse at any moment. Her lips were blue, her hair clung to her face, and her entire body shook uncontrollably. But it was the baby, the tiny, silent, motionless baby in her arms, that made Gabriel's heart drop. Arya barely noticed him at first. She was dizzy, frightened, and running purely on instinct. She only saw warmth, light, and safety ahead, and she moved toward it with the last of her strength. Gabriel approached carefully, unsure whether she would fall before he reached her, and when he finally stood close enough, he realized she was younger than he thought, frail, soaked, and holding the infant as if he were the most precious thing in the world. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Please, help the baby." Something inside Gabriel shattered. He didn't know who she was, what her story was, or why she had a baby in her arms, but he knew desperation when he saw it. In that moment, every instinct in him as a father surged to the surface. He took off his coat and wrapped it around both of them, gently prying the baby from her icy hands. Her knees buckled instantly. He caught her before she hit the ground. That single moment, one man stepping forward, one girl collapsing into safety, became the turning point in both their lives. Gabriel rushed them inside, calling emergency services, wrapping blankets around both of them, trying to warm the baby's tiny body while keeping Arya awake. Doctors later said she was minutes away from severe hypothermia, and the baby had been hours away from losing his life. But they survived, because she didn't give up, because he didn't look away. When Arya finally woke up in a hospital bed the next day, her first words were to ask about the baby. She didn't ask for food, warmth, or even help for herself, just the baby. Gabriel was sitting beside her, exhausted, still wearing the same clothes, his expression soft in a way that surprised even him. He told her the baby was safe, recovering, and would live. Relief washed over her so intensely that she burst into silent tears. Gabriel felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest, a deep respect for this girl who had risked everything for a child she didn't even know. In the days that followed, Gabriel visited her often. He learned that Arya had no home, no family, and no one to help her. She expected nothing from him, not pity, not charity, only updates about the baby. But Gabriel found himself wanting to do more. Something about her strength, her heart, and her willingness to protect a helpless child touched him in a way he hadn't expected. He told himself he was just helping her because it was the right thing to do, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. Gabriel arranged safe temporary housing for Arya, made sure she had warm clothes, food, and access to counseling, but he did it softly, respectfully, without making her feel small or indebted. At first she resisted, uncomfortable with kindness after spending so long fighting for survival, but Gabriel had a quiet, steady way of caring, the kind that didn't demand anything in return. Slowly, Arya began to trust him. And even more unexpectedly, Gabriel's daughter Lily adored her. The little girl followed Arya around with innocent fascination, seeing her not as a stranger but as someone gentle and kind, someone who made her feel safe after years of growing up without a mother. Weeks passed, then months, and during that time, Gabriel helped authorities identify the baby's real situation. He had been abandoned. His mother had left him behind, overwhelmed and unable to cope. As legal procedures unfolded, Gabriel ensured Arya was part of every update. She visited the baby often, bonding with him in ways no one could explain. It was as if their souls had met in that cold alley long before they knew each other. Gabriel saw something incredible in her, the strength to love without expecting anything back. And somewhere along the way, in moments of shared healing, warm dinners, late-night conversations, and small gestures of kindness, Gabriel realized that Arya wasn't just someone he was helping. She had become someone important. Someone whose presence filled the empty spaces in his home and heart. A quiet warmth replaced the loneliness he carried for so long. The turning point came one morning when the baby, now healthy and smiling, reached out for Arya and clung to her with a familiarity that stunned everyone. Social services saw the bond. Gabriel saw the bond. And Arya, overwhelmed, cried because she never imagined a world where she could belong anywhere, let alone be loved by a child who wasn't even hers. But sometimes, fate writes stories that people don't expect. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He stood by Arya's side during every court hearing, every interview, every evaluation. And finally, through a long and emotional legal process, something miraculous happened. Arya was granted guardianship of the baby she saved. A girl who once had nothing now had someone who needed her, someone she had risked everything for, someone who saw her as home. Gabriel was there the day she signed the papers, his eyes shining with quiet pride. Lily clapped happily, and Arya, holding the baby in her arms, whispered a thank you that carried years of pain, relief, and gratitude. But the story didn't end there. Gabriel asked Arya to stay, not out of obligation, not out of charity, but because he wanted her to be part of his life, his home, his family. What began as a single act of kindness became a bridge that connected three broken hearts and turned them into something whole. Arya found stability, warmth, and a future she never imagined. And Gabriel, once a lonely single dad trapped between work and grief, found someone who taught him that healing doesn't always arrive loudly, sometimes it walks in quietly, carrying a baby through a storm. By the end of the year, the mansion that once echoed with silence was filled with laughter, baby giggles, gentle footsteps, and the sound of hope returning. Arya was no longer the girl the world abandoned. She was a mother, a survivor, a symbol of strength, and a reminder that even in the darkest storms, people can save each other. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Whispersof Kindness, so more people can experience stories filled with hope, compassion, and second chances. Special request. Comment below, what part of this story moved you the most?